All right, everyone, welcome. Welcome to Sunday Night Planning. And congratulations, you kind of already did the hardest part, which is just planning time to plan. That just being able to say, I have this time to sit down and do what I need to work on is such a huge component of it. So, we're going to talk more about that in a little bit. I love planning, so thank you for being here. I released a book last year about how I was able to work for 6 weeks and then take off 2 weeks with my team. And it wasn't necessarily that we took the whole 2 weeks and ignored everything in the world. We still checked email during those 2 weeks, but you didn't need to come into the office. So my team was able to work at home during that time. And additionally, we didn't schedule any projects. So we still maintained the day to day to keep the business going. But any project that we had, any big task we wanted to get done was worked into those 6 weeks. So those 2 weeks were just a much more casual work environment. I put all of that together inside of a book called 6 Week Cycles, and a lot of it tells how to do it. And then I've been telling other people how to do it. But this is the first time I decided to run a webinar for friends and colleagues and family to help you understand why this is so incredibly helpful. So the purpose of today, the reason you set aside time on a Sunday at 5 o'clock Central Time to get online and sit in front of a video chat was just to leave with knowing a little more about your upcoming week than you did before you sat down, which maybe in these first 10 minutes you actually already have. And you already feel like you could probably log off now because you know what you need to get done this week. But stick with me because we're going to talk about this, the reason my team was able to work for 6 weeks and take off for two. And the reason you're going to be able to get done the things that we put on your list are because of this beautiful little law, which just simply says, however long we set aside to do something is how long it's going to take us to do. And we've done this. You've done this back in school when you had, let's say, 6 weeks to get an assignment done. Yet you managed, because you're incredible, you managed to get it done in just 4 hours the night before it was due. You do fantastic things. That's what we want to stick with. So, Parkinson's Law, we're going to set aside how long we want something to take. A lot of times, and a lot of what I feel like we do is we track time after it's happened. And we say, this is how much we did spend on this task. The mindset I want you to get into with this is to say, this is how much time I'm going to spend on this task. Because that's what the sheet's going to help us set up. It's going to break down so we know when we set down to go and do something that we have 90 minutes. And we know that that's the amount of time we have to get this done, and we need to make sure we get it done then. It puts that little bit of pressure on. And one of the things I found doing things this way is all of a sudden the challenge isn't about the task. It's not about what I need to get done. It's about how quickly I can get it done. That all of a sudden it becomes this race against time every day. Because if I can get things done sooner, I get to have a little more of that time to myself. So Parkinson's Law is going to be your new best friend. That again, we're going to talk about how long you're going to spend on something instead of how long something took you. So today, we're going to walk through that Google Sheet together. So I want to take you through it, and you're going to actually start to fill in your own sheet. If you had not had the chance to grab one of those sheets yet, just listen once real quick. You're going to go to hijoemartin.com. You're going to scroll down on the homepage to where it says April 2020 resources, and you're going to open up that Google spreadsheet that's attached. So, because you're going to go through it. You're actually going to do this during this time in the next 41 minutes. After we have that, I want you to actually go through and start filling in your sheet. And at that point, I'm just here to answer questions. So map it out. We're going to talk about how to fill out that sheet. And then by the end, you get to feel prepared tomorrow morning. You get to wake up tomorrow morning and go, damn, Joe, I feel like I know what's coming up this week. And that's what we're going to get to. So step by step with this sheet that you have up, we're going to come back to these. So right now, just listen, no notes. I can send you these slides afterwards. But the first thing I want you to do on that sheet is we're going to go through and schedule time for planning an email. And I'm going to tell you why this is so important coming up in a little bit. I then want you to pull out your calendar. So if you need to get your calendar open, let's get your calendar open for this week, because I want you to go through and list on the sheet any meetings that you have coming up. Once we do that part, I'm going to have you go through and brain dump how long the things take that you wrote down in that task list. And then finally, we're going to place the most immediate tasks into your sheet. So I know that we just went through a lot of what's coming up. So let's just jump into it, because this is the one thing that I think could genuinely change your perception and how your workday goes. And it's that every morning, I just want you to set aside 30 minutes to plan. This is only 2.5 hours out of your entire week that I'm asking you to just trust me. Just trust me on this one. And just for this week, try to start off every day with 30 minutes. Put a timer on your phone, start it so you know, but a dedicated 30 minutes to look ahead at your day and plan out everything that you need to get done. So I want you to be moving it from your calendar or from your sheet over into your calendar that day. And we're gonna break down what it looks like to do that. But it's this idea of planning that we know how valuable planning is. It gets us so many more things in life, like a successful business. It helps us get cheaper plane tickets. It helps us know what needs to be done in the day. Planning is wonderful. It actually has a return on energy and investment. This is what we want. If I can help you move faster and more productive in your day, I guarantee you do incredible things. So, this first half hour, when you're doing the planning, what you're also doing is visualization. And this is big because you're actually going to be just going through every hour of what needs to get done. And you're going to see yourself going through that as you start to put things in your calendar. And that's the visualization I want, which I remember first hearing about this. I think it was from about Michael Vick, and how every time he runs a race, he sits there, closes his closes his eyes and pictures the entire race first in his head. And that's kind of what I want you to do here. I want you to take this to that pro athlete level and play through everything you need to do hour by hour, which is what this process of moving it from your sheet to the calendar is going to help you achieve. And part of what we're doing when we also do this is we're trying to do a little risk management, because we don't want to get distracted, because it's these small distractions that are just going to pull things away. It sucks up your time. You don't even know it. And a lot of times, one of the things that I'm really adamant about is Slack. We need to start closing Slack. I think that it breeds this kind of this right now culture, this idea that it's easier for me to interrupt your day and probably 10 other people's days inside of one of the group channels to ask my question than it is for me just to go look up the answer myself. And it's convenient. It's convenient as hell, but it's almost too convenient because of what it does. And so when Slack is open during the day, every time one of those messages goes off, I promise you, it's pulling you away probably more than you realize in terms of your productivity and what you're able to get done. Same goes for Skype, Microsoft Teams, any of those platforms that you're using that way. Just, we got to keep control of them. And one of the things I want you to try and do this week is actually close those programs down when you're not going to be inside of them. And we're going to plan it out, because that's going to fall under what's known as communicating time, because everything falls into one of these three categories. And if you're sitting there and you're saying this and you think that there's no way you can plan out your day, just stick with me. We're going to get to it. We're going to do it together, because all you need to do is plan time for things that then come up in the day. If you're going to say, Joe, I get thrown off track too much, other people come to me, meetings get scheduled at the last minute, that does not mean we don't plan your week. What it means is we just plan a smaller chunk of your week and then try to make next week have less shit come up. Because right now, I imagine, especially with working from home and trying to get a handle on this, it's just going to continue to come up, but that's fine. Let's just plan time for shit to come up. And if you have to show your sheet to a boss to say, this is what I'm working on this week, and they look at it and they say, what is this 2 hours of bullshit? You can say, that's 2 hours of bullshit that you're not holding back for me. So 2 hours, shit that comes up if we need to go that route. We're going to plan it all out, and we're going to look at how much time you're spending per day. So we can already see, if you trust me on this half hour of daily planning at the beginning, is then we need to plan out how much time email and other communication platforms. So if you have Asana, if you are using Basecamp or Trello, a CRM, anything else that may be taking your time that you need to communicate or log or put things in for other people, we're going to put that under this communicating time. And I usually group my email and Basecamp in Slack, in Asana. That all goes together inside of one. So I know how much time I'm going to spend on that. But already at that point, we have an hour and a half of your day accounted for. And what we're going to plan for is 6 hours per day. What this gets us, when it's done correctly, is that we have our planning for 30 minutes every morning. You're planning what you're doing at work, but you're also planning what you're doing personally. If something came up, if you need to do something for the kids, this is the time when you're planning it out. This is everything in life you're planning. After that, we have 5.5 hours for email, meetings, projects. I want this because this leaves you 4 breaks at 15 minutes per break. It also leaves you an hour-long lunch to get away, reset, and then I want you to go back into work, which brings us to our good old wholesome American 8-hour workday. The other thing I like about the breaks and the lunchtime is that if we need to, this is our flex time. This is if another task is running over, we can borrow from this. This is where you choose to give up your break because you didn't plan that task well enough. We want to watch how much of this time we get. So because of that, we only want to try and plan for 6 hours per day. So if you're putting 2 hours a day in for bullshit, that only leaves us 4 hours a day that we can plan, which is fine. I am happy with 4 hours a day because I want to move at this tortoise-like pace. I don't want you starting every day running and feeling like you just need to be at 120% to get through to be where you need to be and to get those things done. Let's move at this tortoise-like pace. Let's go slow. Let's go steady. And just like the fable talks about, you will probably get there at the same time. Only you'll be more relaxed and you'll have had more time for yourself. And I often compare it back that in Chicago, we have the Metra. So the L is the train that runs downtown, around the loop, the elevated system, but the Metra goes out to the suburbs. And because of this, it has scheduled times that it needs to pick up at each stop. And Metra has a saying, they like to feel like they are on time all the time. But with this, when you look at how they're able to achieve this, they're not pushing the trains at 100% between every day. You push it at only 60%, knowing you can go to 70 or 80% if you need to. Sometimes there may be other stuff happening and it only goes at 40% between those stops. Again, knowing you can push it more if you need to. And I think the same idea applies to us. That when we look at what we're working on, I can't have you going every day at 100%. It's not going to last. That's not how we work. And some days you're going to need to be at 40%. The kids are going to be more obnoxious than they were the day before. More stuff is happening. Maybe the other person had a meeting and it interfered with yours because they had too much stuff going on. Whatever it is, we can't expect 100% every time. This is why we're looking to plan 6 hours. Let's keep it inside of there. So on the sheet, we have things broken down. I personally like a check-in meeting at the beginning of every week. This is where we need to get stuff right. So this is with whoever holds you accountable for getting stuff done. That again, I don't want to look at the past in terms of telling that person, this is what I got done, or this is what was completed this week. I want you looking ahead at the future and being held accountable for it. I want you to be able to say, this is how much time I'm going to spend on this task this week, and then spend that amount of time getting that thing done. If you don't complete it in that time, cool, then we need to mark more time on the future for you to finish whatever that task was. But a weekly check-in, same idea of daily planning. I want a little bit of time at the beginning of your week to go through and look at everything you have coming up. Those same benefits of visualization, of planning, of risk management to know when you're going to get interrupted. We can eliminate so many of those then. If you've got a meeting on Thursday, reach out to the person, confirm the meeting on Thursday, on Monday during this check-in, whether that's something you're doing with yourself or with a team member. I talked about this idea as well. I don't want to see you plan for anything more than an hour and a half. So even meetings, let's not plan for 2+ hour meetings if we don't need that. Know what the purpose is going into that meeting, know what needs to come out of it. If you've ever heard POA, which is purposes, outcome, agenda, I know the team at Cultivate loves to push that phrase for all their meetings. That's what we're looking for. What do you need to do there? Because all of those meetings, this isn't work time it's taking away from you anymore. This is home time. This is your life. And if you can get these things done faster and more efficiently, you're going to have more time for yourself, for your life. So weekly check-in meeting, helps us understand what's coming up this week. The weekly checkout meeting helps us know how that week went. The same thing in terms of marketing, that we need to measure the analytics. And we can't just say, great, we put that stuff out there. We need to check back in. We need to come back and say, well, yeah, we put that stuff out there, but how did it do? And so we need to look at that other side of it. So if we've got the check-in meeting to say, here's what's coming up, we need that accountability piece at the end of the week to say, all right, what did I get done? What was completed? And so within that Monday morning, I want you or your team, if you're running this with other people, tell someone else your weekly agenda. Again, if you have a mentor or just a friend who's willing to check in with you on Mondays, get on the phone. It's important to have that other person. There's real strength in community. At that point, as well on Monday, coordinate and schedule any required meetings, reviews, anything coming up. Again, because we're looking ahead at the week. This is our Monday check-in. And I want you to look at it. Take that quick step back, and that stuff that happens every week that you go, I knew that was going to happen. I knew this person was going to do that. I knew this would come up. I knew this client would ask for this. Let's get ahead of it. You already know this. So let's just go ahead and write down, is there something you need to do? Should you be sending an email a day before a meeting, reminding everyone about it to make sure they show up? What problems are going to come up that week? Let's cut off those problems before they can happen. And then we're going to review the improvements from the previous week. Just what happened last week? What was bad about last week? How do we make this week better? On Friday, in that checkout meeting, I want you to spend 2 minutes in silence and write down everything that went well that week. Again, we need to measure, how did things go? But this isn't a measurement in terms of it just took this much time. It's a measurement in terms of happiness. Did you actually enjoy your life this week? Is it a week that you get to look back on and say, yeah, this was good. For as shitty as things are, this was still good. So I want you, again, doing that reflection, looking back on everything. After you write down 2 minutes in silence what went well, that's usually we're on a team. We would go through and then share that with each other, which is also your chance to celebrate your wins. That after you have a few weeks of writing down what went well, and you get to go back and look at it, it just gives you this real perspective of kind of where you've been, where you're headed, and kind of how your future is playing out. That I love being able to see what went well a few weeks ago versus that week when I'm going through different things. So we talked about what went well. Then we're going to talk about what did not go well. And let's write down that list. Again, 2 minutes in silence on a Friday. What didn't go well? And let's go ahead and get that stuff done, and then share that with our team as well. And then as a group, discuss how you improve it for next week. Again, we're reflecting, now what do we need to change? What needs to happen? That maybe this week, this stuff came up. How do I make less of that stuff come up next week? And this is a constant improvement. That when you just have these meetings set up, you're able to just have a habit. It's a culture of revisiting what happens and making those improvements, which I love, and I think you'll love. And my favorite thing about these Friday checkout meetings is there's nothing to prepare. No one needs to do anything. All they need to do is show up, because then that's when you're doing the 2 minutes in silence. If you're working by yourself, if you don't have anyone else to share it with, still do this. Take out your phone, set a timer, put it for 2 minutes, and just look back at your week and write down those things that went well, and the same things what didn't go well. And then look, how do you improve? Because when we did this as a team, it actually became one of those things that we looked forward to. It was this amazing culture building, just hang out and chat kind of talk, but it helped us know what's happening in each person's life. It helped us know what projects they were working on, what things were holding them up, what was annoying them. And sometimes you just need to vent and get it out. And so if you can do this, if you can start to get this right, there is this cognitive closure piece that I think you are going to love. Because now all of a sudden, when you have it planned out in advance, at the end of your day tomorrow, at the end of Monday, you get to be done and say, done. I got done everything that I needed to do today. And I even completed it 15 minutes earlier than I thought I would. I'm done. And that's cognitive closure. That's what I want you to feel. Not like it's still 1,000 things burdening down on you and that you always need to be thinking about them. You got to get some of this stuff off your head. And that's where you want that cognitive closure. You're also going to find that what needs to get done is well defined. That now you actually know you get to go into a day with a checklist and say, once I get these things done, I get my cognitive closure and I'm done. Doing this for a team, you're going to find employees are less stressed. You're going to feel less stressed yourself. And then at the end of the day, for me, a big part of doing this was being able to have my employees spend more time with their kids. That during that 2-week break, I wanted them to be able to shut off. I wanted them to have a work day where their only job is to check email occasionally. Otherwise, they get to spend that time with their kids. At the time, to go steal them out of school for the day and go do something with them. But even working from home, that I highly doubt anyone working from home in the past month has scheduled themselves a day off just to hang out with their kids. And we can do that. We can make the time to say this is what you needed to get done this week and allow you to take that day off. So let's go ahead and get into this stuff step by step. We're going to start with schedule time for planning and email. So if you've got your sheet, go ahead and pull open your sheet. And the first thing we want to do is start looking ahead at your calendar this week. And sorry, not your calendar yet. I just want you to go ahead and put in your sheet. It may have already been in there, time for planning, and adjust that time for email. And one big question is, how much time should I allow for email? We don't know. We don't know how much time you spend on email per day, probably. So I'd say let's start with 2 hours. And let's give you a full hour in the morning. And then we're going to talk about giving you a full hour in the afternoon on this. So let's say 2 hours for email. We got that half hour every day for planning. If you want to put in a check-in and a check-out meeting on Monday and Friday, you can go ahead and put that in. And then the next thing I want you to do is to now pull out your calendar and look ahead at the meetings you have coming up that week and start to place those in the communication row. So anywhere that you have a meeting, let's put down how much time it's going to take. Time is going to be 0.25, 0.5, 0.75, and 1. And so we're talking about a quarter of an hour, 3/4 of an hour, half and 1. So go ahead and put in how long that meeting is along with the time. You should start to see that sheet populate. And if you're using the Google Sheet, the numbers will update at the bottom with how long that's going to take. So I'm going to go ahead and give you about 3 minutes to go through, look at your week, and start putting down what meetings you have coming up inside of the Google Sheet, and then we'll get right back into it. Any questions, you can type those in the chat, and I'll respond to those now. Thank you, guys. All right, so everyone should hopefully be at this point that you have the sheet up and you've been able to go through and start filling it in with what you have coming up that week. I'm going to go ahead here and actually move some of my stuff over to one of these sheets as well. Okay, so set up here, I've got my daily planning across the top. I've got my time for email, and then I've listed out those meetings that I have coming up this week. On the other side of those meetings now, I want you to look at what else needs to happen. So if that meeting is scheduled for a half hour, Do you need to send an email after that meeting, recapping anything? Do you need to follow up with people? Do you need to type up your notes and put those inside of a CRM? Do you need to prepare for that meeting and have more time for it before it actually starts? So now go ahead, look at those meetings. And if you need more time right now, let's just increase the time of that meeting. So if it was a half-hour meeting and you had it at point 0.5, let's just say meeting. Let's go ahead and change it, knowing that you have a little bit of prep work, maybe a little bit of follow-up. And let's actually set it for 0.75, which would then be 45 minutes. And go ahead, adjust those meetings, put in any extra tasks you need to, and let's talk about the breakdown of the sheet a little bit while you're doing that. So the very top row in blue, we have our focus. A lot of getting things done apps, or a lot of getting things done methodologies talk about how you want to have this one big thing that you need to get done that day, that above all else, as long as you get done this one thing, that day's a success, which plays in line with so many psychological principles about focusing on one thing as well. So up in the blue area with the big white text, that's where we want the focus of what is the biggest focus for that day, that thing that just needs to happen that you know is going to need to be that top priority. And so that's what we put inside that top row. As we get into the planning area, planning is any time that you just need to sit and work out some ideas. So usually it'll be daily planning, but there may be something in terms of wanting to get a list together. What is it? I needed to put together an agenda for a meeting that I was having. And so in order to put that agenda together, I put that under planning time. So it was something I was planning to be able to do, just so I could track that planning area. You'll notice at the gray bar at the bottom, all the way to the right, this is just a simple spreadsheet formula. But it's just gonna let you know how many hours you have dedicated that week to that specific type of tasks. The next area we have is communicating. This is going to be anything involved with talking to another person. So definitely all of your meetings need to go in here, whether those are one-on-one, whether those are group meetings, any email, if you need to send additional emails, anytime for Slack, project management tools, anywhere that it requires you to be talking to someone else or communicating to someone else to complete your job is going to go inside this communicating area. At the bottom, doing is just you. These are things that you don't need anyone else's help with, that you already know what you need to get done for it. And this is just telling you what you need to sit there and work on. And so with that, this is where I want you to be able to turn off all of the distractions during this doing time as well. That if you've said, I will get this done in an hour, you've probably estimated that you could get that done in an hour without any distractions. And even still, humans are awful at estimating time. We are so incredibly bad at it that the entire first year I tried to do 6-week cycles with my team, every single one of them was messed up. It was a nightmare. We could never figure out exactly how long something was going to take us. And just that is practice. And that comes with time, with knowing how much time you need to set aside to get something done, and even mapping out tasks further. So being here tonight, signing up for this, going through this, starting with this simple spreadsheet, this is just step number one. But the more you do it, the better you're going to get at it. Just like with anything, the more cognizance you have of where your time goes per day, the better you're going to get at managing it. I guarantee it. So just stick with it. Stick with this little spreadsheet system for a few weeks, and let's see how it goes. So doing tasks, just you, only you. You turn off your phone, you close email, you close Slack, and you don't pop up again until that task is done. I want you to dedicate your time to it. Focus and get it done. When we try to multitask, we just don't get as much done. We know that. But fine, I know I'm not going to break you of multitasking with one Sunday night planning call, but let's break you of multitasking on just one thing. So anything you put inside that doing area, this is you tell the husband or the wife that you are setting aside this time specifically to work on this, and you'd appreciate not being distracted. You let the children know that you'll be able to talk to them in an hour when you finish this one thing. Let's set an expectation with them and tell them when they can talk to you, and not just give this idea that this is when you can't talk to me. Don't say you can't. Let them know when they can. So even if you need to set up a timer or tell them just what time they'll be able to talk to you again, I want you to free yourself of distractions during that time And a lot of it's going to be that planning, that expectation, and knowing you have that time coming up. So that gets us through all the columns with our planning, our communicating, our doing. Hopefully you've been listening to this, but at the same time filling out your sheet and beginning to dump a lot of those things in. And what you're probably finding is that you're hitting that 6-hour marker pretty quickly with some of this. If we can't fit it in the 6 hours, we need to question whether or not it really needs to be done. Especially since if you're planning for 6 hours now, you're going to have more stuff thrown at you that's going to throw this off track. So do your best to keep that 6-hour mark. You have dedicated time now planned in your day to do that daily planning. And once you complete that, every morning, you're going to pull this out. You're going to look at your Monday. So tomorrow, you're going to pull it up, look at your Monday, and then you're going to go through in your calendar and put in each one of these tasks. So we know that we're going to do a half hour for daily planning. In fact, let me see if I can just share this and we can just start doing this together because I need to do this too. All right. Here we go. So we've got the 27th tomorrow, 20th tomorrow. So we're just going to go to our sheet, check in with Kyle for a half hour. I think I already have that on the do. I've got a check-in meeting with Sunny for a half hour. Got that on the calendar as well. I do not have my planning in here yet. This is how my calendar looked last week. So this is what it starts to turn into once you actually start to plan it out and put everything in there. And so as we get this in, so I know I'm gonna do my daily planning, so I need at least a half hour for that. Hour and a half for email. Where's my email? So I've actually combined my email with my LinkedIn time. So I'm trying to put those together and do those in the same chunks, so about 45 minutes per day. And even with email gets treated like a task. That is another one that I try not to be distracted while I'm working on it until I usually close other programs and other things I'm working on. So got that time set up, and I did not finish building out. We put together a cycle overview doc. And because that is a 1-hour task, I want to keep that together. And then I will actually try to put in time for lunch as well. Let's make that a real thing to know that we've got time blocked off for it. And then we want to make sure we're not putting stuff too on top of each other. That's what's happening. And so we want to try and leave a little bit of breathing room in there as well. Of when is that time that we're going to get up? What are those 4 15-minute breaks we're going to look to have? And we can just already see how quickly a day just gets gobbled up. That just a few small things when you try to get them done. And this is what we want, to know what we're working on, to get it done, to be able to tell a boss, to be able to tell a client, to be able to tell ourselves, this is what we're going to complete, and we know we can complete it. So hopefully this has helped you get started, that you've got the sheet. There are multiple tabs at the bottom of each sheet, so you can look ahead to other days. The thing is at the bottom, in terms of goals, what went well, what didn't go well, items to discuss in quotes, those are places to just put any notes as you're working throughout the week. So even if you want to just kind of add to your what went well or what didn't go well throughout the week, here's a spot to keep it. I usually keep this sheet open all day as well. I'll try to come back in and adjust it if something needs to move. If something does need to change, you'll do that in here as well and move it ahead to a future day. And that's kind of how we get started. So I see right now a question from Sheila about, do you schedule your breaks and lunch in your calendar? And yes. So as those come up on the day, because again, things change from day to day, which is one of the things I didn't like about planning in a calendar before, because then things couldn't move as fluidly. Is that I would try to plan out a whole week, but then I had to move something here to Thursday, and then the whole thing just fell apart. So as I look ahead at a week, I only try and keep that planned with just the meetings that are necessary. And then every morning during that planning session, that's where I'm actually taking the tasks and mapping those out. That I think I saw in some of the feedback, someone talked about not having that motivation in the afternoon. Fantastic, good. If you know that, let's not plan important tasks in the afternoon. So then as you go through and map out your day, make sure you're taking that big 1.5 hour doing task and that you're actually putting that in the morning to make sure it's done. And then if you know you're not good in the afternoon, you start doing what I've started doing as well. I've just started scheduling my meetings for a little later in the day. And I try to take those kind of after 3 at this point. Because it makes it easier to talk to someone else. I think that holds me more accountable to when I talk to them as well. So you'll start to realize how you work when you work best. Let's take back to, we got some more questions here. As a salaried employee, are you expected to work 40 hours or more? We're not expected to plan for 40 hours or more. So this is where, again, I want you to plan for the 6 hours a day. And you can even pitch it as saying, hey, look, I've left 2 hours in there for your stuff to come up, for things to adjust, because I know that it's not going to be as simple as what I wrote down actually gets completed. Which, when you go through this sheet, the goal is not to have a perfect week. No one, I don't know if anyone's ever had a perfect week that went according to plan. But what's important is that we have a framework in place to adjust it and still hold ourselves accountable. So I kind of treat the sheet more like meditation, is that it's not a one and done, your week is planned. It's more of a practice. You're going to keep revisiting it. You're going to keep working through it, but it's going to help you be more cognizant of where you're spending your time and what you can actually do better with it. So any other questions, go ahead and post those or raise your hand. If you want to raise your hand, I'm happy to take a look at your week. If you have any questions, what's happening there, I'll pull you on. We can chat about it real quick and help you get the rest of this done. Otherwise, you have 8 minutes that we set aside for finishing this webinar that you can go ahead, keep working through this sheet and try to get that week mapped out. And then when you go into Monday morning tomorrow, maybe even look at Monday on your calendar right now, get that time for planning, that first half hour of planning, pull back out the sheet, map out your tasks, move them around, see how the day goes. And if you want to send me an email at the end of the day to say, Joe, this is awful, or Joe, this helped, I'll definitely take it. And if there's room for improvement, let me know. But thank you everyone for being here. And I'm going to take some questions now from whoever has some. Chad, I've got you on. You can unmute when you have a moment.
Can you hear me?
I can, yes.
Oh, that was an excellent session. I really liked it.
Thank you.
And I would like to know, even though we plan for the whole week, but there are circumstances where we are living, the surroundings and the family, the office or phone rings, like there are multiple things which come into the picture, even though it's not planned in our calendar.
Yep.
And sometimes all these events are connected to financials of a person, like how much he eats that day, how much energy he has to complete those tasks, what he has planned. So do you think like these are all connected, overall development of a person to follow the plan he's doing?
It is, because then part of it is, once we get this stuff on the calendar, we have to trust the calendar. Is that we're anticipating how that employee's time is going to be spent, how it's going to affect revenue as well, can all be triggered into what tasks are actually they're doing. And one of the ones you mentioned with some of the distractions in terms of having a phone call that now comes up and distracts things, is that's what we want to know. Yes, you can take that phone call. It's going to be that distraction, but don't move to that task right away. Put time on the calendar, jump back to the sheet and say, I need to spend time following up on this task for this person, and then stick on the task that you had. Do you think that would work?
Forcing ourselves to do that, you mean to say?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a practice that productivity turns into a practice to be able to actually do it correctly.
What if the people do not understand your way of planning? Then there might be some differences arises between them, and they might not like you. What happens then?
There is it comes down to situational leadership at that point, and you have to find out that maybe they don't need to be pushed this far, but then how else are you holding them accountable? So what are those metrics that you're actually measuring whether or not you're getting a return on that employee? So yes, they can be difficult, but can they at least tell you the one big thing they're going to get done every day? And then can you hold them accountable to that? That I wouldn't want you kind of going through an employee sheet and seeing all the hours they have planned. If you're above that person, I would really just want them to verify these are the tasks I'm getting done this week. Do you agree with these tasks? Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's perfect, Joe. Yeah.
Okay.
May I connect with you on LinkedIn if possible?
Please. Yeah. You can find me on LinkedIn at Hi Joe Martin as well. Just LinkedIn, or I think on the bottom of my webpage, there's a link over to LinkedIn.
Sure. And how did you get your website? Is this nicely designed?
Oh, thanks. That's me. I've been doing websites and design and marketing for 20 years.
Oh, wow. That's a good in the website design. Yeah. Thank you so
Thank you.
much.
Absolutely. All right. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you. Good evening. Bye.
Take care. Anyone else? Any other questions? Feel free to raise your hand. Otherwise, we got about 3 minutes left. I'm hoping that you're still here because you're hanging out and you've been working through your sheet and you were like, just in case, I'm gonna stick around. If I have any questions, I'll ask Joe. And then you can jump on like John Doherty is here and ask your question. John, what's happening over there?
Hey, Joe. Long-time listener, first-time caller. When will the recording be available?
I will try to get this recording up by Wednesday and probably check in with you at that point as well to see how the first few days have been going for you.
Yeah, I want to share it with the people I work with because you explain it so well. So that's what I would like to do. Thanks.
Okay, let me actually double check here. There might be a story on the site. Yeah, right below the weekly planning sheet is the guide to planning. And this is an article that covers a lot of these same ideas. It's just obviously not in the webinar format, but there's a little video in there and it'll take you through exactly how to do this as well. So you can go back to hijoemartin.com down there and snag that as well if you need to.
Cool, thanks.
No problem. Thank you, John. Appreciate it. Anyone else? Are there questions? Otherwise, we are closing in on 6 o'clock. And again, idea here, keep this sheet open with you throughout the week. Look at it every day. Pull it open during that half-hour planning. And even if you've just taken a little bit of time to write down what's coming up this week, or if you've actually gone through to start putting this in your calendar and use this again, that I hope to hear from you if you have any answers. And last minute question from Shaylee, who says, do we need to add anything to the planning part? Planning would just be anything else that you think you might need to plan. So if there's a big project coming up, I just like to separate out that time so I know how much time I'm spending doing planning. So not as meticulous. You can put that in doing if you need to. What I really want you to get out of it is how long you're going to spend doing it and how's that playing to the total number of hours you're working on it per day. So anything else, just let me know. I'm going to hang out for one more minute in case anyone else has questions. Otherwise, thank you all for being here. This was a much larger turnout than I anticipated with all this. So it's nice to see everyone taking accountability for their week, wanting to get a little more organized. And for those parents out there, I do think some of these tactics are going to help you. Is that I think you'll get that ability to kind of balance both worlds, to get your stuff done and spend time with your kids. You just need to plan with it. So I really hope that happens for you. You can email me at it's email me at hijoemartin.com. If you do have any questions with this week, happy to give you some advice, nudge you the right way, and stay safe, everyone.